Jiang Qiuyi is the youngest state banquet chef. In order to find ingredients for the lost recipe, she accidentally encountered a mudslide and came to the future. Looking at the astonishingly poor descendants of the old Jiang family, Jiang Qiuyi waved his hand. Set up a pancake stall, sell desserts, start a live broadcast, open a restaurant, buy a planet, and raise a younger brother. With all my heart set on making money and becoming wealthy, I accidentally became the richest person on the planet. At the beginning of the interstellar people. What kind of thing? Cooking is not done in this way, the anchor is poisonous. Later, the anchorman will soon put chocolate cake on the shelf. Life can't live without chocolate cake. Braised pork belly is so delicious that it makes me cry. Finally, the youngest interstellar leader in history, Tomo Akiyoshi, topped the interstellar headline hot search list. Everyone. Hello, big shot. Do you want a pendant? Jiang Qiuyi. Compared to men, she wants to lie in a pile of money and have a happy life. Hua Chen. Look at me, my partner. I am super strong and can eat thieves. # I didn't expect that by selling cakes, opening restaurants, and playing live streaming, I would accidentally become the richest person. ##. After I became the richest man, the experience of finding a husband who only knows how to eat was like #, a food blogger who is solely focused on making money to support his younger brother, but also a love-brain soldier who is cold on the outside and hot on the inside. Mind clearance. Most of the interstellar settings are privately created by the author, with no logical content. The male protagonist is a marshal but has a romantic brain, while the female protagonist has a golden finger, and all the criticisms of the author's own brain problems rebound. The female protagonist's name is the real name of a dessert-learning friend in reality, not a plagiarism of someone else's name. Keywords of the novel. Becoming the richest person in the interstellar world through delicious food without pop-ups, becoming the richest person in the interstellar world through delicious food. Download the complete text, and read the latest chapters on becoming the richest person in the interstellar world through delicious food. Chapter 1. Crossing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Crossing. Jiang Qiuyi felt like her whole body was soaked in a sticky liquid, and her eyelids weighed heavily on her eyes. She clearly remembered that she was on her way to Changbai Mountain, but after being interviewed by the media, Jiang Qiuyi unexpectedly saw an ancient recipe left by her ancestors. But there was a missing ingredient in the recipe, and Jiang Qiuyi had no choice but to follow the records in ancient books and personally go up the mountain to search for ingredients. Unexpectedly, she encountered a serious mudslide. At that time, a roar came from halfway up the mountain, followed by earth shaking, and she lost all consciousness. Jiang Qiuyi felt a bit hesitant when she thought about this. She thought she couldn't survive anymore, but now it's up to her to see if someone has saved her. Thinking of the situation on the mountain at that time, Jiang Qiuyi couldn't help but sweat profusely. It was the rainy season when she went up the mountain, and the loud noise she heard halfway up the mountain was probably a mudslide. Thinking of this, Jiang Qiuyi couldn't help but feel that she was really lucky. She was almost going to heaven to see her ancestors. The Jiang family is a famous family of imperial chefs, who have been passed down from generation to generation since hundreds of years ago. Jiang Qiuyi is even more famous for her young culinary skills, which have made countless foodies crazy. Not only is she the head of the Jiang family at a young age, but also a state banquet chef who has hosted many aristocrats and celebrities. Whether you want to eat the dishes she cooks depends on her mood. The patient's body is severely damaged and their consciousness is a bit unclear. It's really strange. According to reason, they should have been awake long ago. A person wearing a white robe with a pair of blue light glasses on his face looked at the person soaked in the nutrient solution in confusion. It's really strange why number 001 hasn't woken up yet, Blair. Didn't you check the DNA library and notify the family? Jiang Qiuyi was completely confused, and she could vaguely hear someone talking beside her, but she couldn't react and couldn't even open her eyes. Kyle, I have already contacted my family. He is a garbage star immigrant. The man named Blair turned his head and looked at Jiang Qiuyi soaking in the vat, with a nonchalant expression on his face. She was a woman from the edge of the empire and not a very important figure. They were ordered by the Imperial Archaeology Department to go to a remote planet in the solar system to excavate some cultural relics, but unexpectedly met a natural woman. Garbage planet, I didn't expect there to be a natural woman in such a chaotic place, Kyle said, stopping her hand to check the data. The technology of future interstellar humans has reached an unprecedented achievement. Of course, most of them are ordinary people engaged in basic industries, and under the welfare of the imperial government, they can be said to have a plain life without any ups and downs. There is also a type of person who is the lowest level of poverty. They live in remote and abandoned asteroids, where not only are resources extremely scarce, but their living environment is also very harsh, usually abandoned mining stars. Not only were they poor and impoverished, but they could only receive the lowest level of education. In this hierarchical imperial government, several aristocratic families monopolized entertainment, education, and countless wealth, so the poor were always poor. If it weren't for a stroke of luck, under normal circumstances, ordinary people would not have the ability to change their class. Nobles are always nobles and commoners are always commoners. With the rapid development of technology and human destruction of nature, increasingly serious pollution has caused many genetic diseases to spread from women with weak physical conditions. Not only did it cause a sharp decline in women, but it also temporarily lowered fertility to the lowest level. However, breakthroughs in genetic technology have gradually matured, stabilizing the number of women. Now, the population of the imperial government has also reached a stable level. But now pure natural people who have not undergone genetic modification, or purebred women, are simply rare. Thinking of this, Kyle couldn't help but lift her head to look at Jiang Qiuyi soaking in the nutrient solution. The natural woman from an abandoned planet is really surprising. Kyle pressed her fingerprint under a light blue screen, and Jiang Qiuyi, who was soaking in the tank, slowly opened her eyes. Jiang Qiuyi opened her eyes and saw herself in a silver-white room, surrounded by walls that looked like metal of some kind, constantly emitting a hint of blue light. Standing in front of him was a person wearing a white coat, with their eyes facing each other. Jiang Qiuyi saw the man in front of him, who had blonde hair and a typical European white appearance, but his deep pupils were of two different colors. Kyle, it's really strange that this natural woman not only has black hair, but also black pupils. Isn't it certain that genetic modification technology was used? Blair felt a little puzzled when he saw Jiang Qiuyi's hair. As the person soaking in the nutrition tank slowly opened a pair of black eyes, he couldn't help but be surprised. Her ancestors should be the indigenous people of Blue Star, and the light brain did not detect any traces of genetic modification. It should be the original color. It's a pity on a garbage planet, it's so beautiful. Kyle looked at Jiang Qiuyi, and after countless years of genetic fusion, few people would have such pure hair color. Jiang Qiuyi couldn't help but lift her hand, but realized that she seemed to be soaking in glue, unable to move up and down, and didn't even have the strength to lift her hand in the simplest way. What a damn thing. She shouldn't have been transported to some mysterious laboratory by a mudslide. It's strange to see this strange place and the two people standing in front of her. A strange pupil with one eye blue and one eye orange, this beautiful pupil bought from there is simply too real, and there is also a head full of white hair with eyes of different colors. Jiang Qiuyi couldn't help but doubt whether she had been kidnapped by non-mainstream people. It's really strange, especially since she's still soaking in an unknown liquid. Maybe it's formalin. Don't worry when you wake up, we have already contacted your family through the database. Kyle saw Jiang Qiuyi open his eyes as they discovered her on the brink of death under a large stone. Jiang Qiuyi's satisfied question mark was about to appear. She knew that the two non-mainstream people in front of her were speaking to her, and she could also hear their voices. But just couldn't understand what was being said, and English was not considered English but seemed like German. Anyway, it had a strange accent. Jiang Qiuyi patted the glass jar in front of her. She was completely immersed in liquid, but it was very strange that she didn't drown. On the contrary, she didn't feel that this was a new invention at all. It was a bit far-fetched to say that it was liquid, more like soaking in a pile of sticky glue. She doesn't look very good, Blair couldn't help but speak up. If it weren't for the imperial government's regulations, natural women would have to be brought back for treatment. They would only send people to government charity organizations casually, and they wouldn't apply for gene bank pairing to help her find family. The numbers show that she is doing well, and everything else has nothing to do with us. Wait for her family to come and pick her up, Kyle said and pressed a button, causing the person in the glass jar to fall into a coma again. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Wake up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Wake up. Jiang Qiuyi's eyelids turned black, and she only remembered being saved by two strange people in her mind. I don't know how long Jiang Qiuyi was unconscious. When she opened her eyes, it wasn't the room she had seen before made of an unknown metal, but a completely unfamiliar room. Jiang Qiuyi looked at the unfamiliar environment with a bewildered expression on her face. If the previous room looked like a strange laboratory, when she woke up, besides the strange blue screens flashing everywhere in the room, it looked very simple. What kind of strange place is this? Jiang Qiuyi felt like she had been soaking in that strange liquid for a long time, and when she woke up, she felt a bit dizzy. She clearly remembers that her consciousness completely disappeared when she hit a big rock, but now Jiang Qiuyi touched the back of her head and didn't find any wounds. Not only that, there were no wounds all over her body, not even small wounds. Jiang Qiuyi looked around curiously, but she didn't expect to be able to escape death. Master, you're awake, a mechanical sound reached Jiang Qiuyi's ear. Jiang Qiuyi looked up at the sound and unexpectedly saw a large oval-shaped iron block with a mechanical arm walking in front of her. Jiang Qiuyi looked at the big iron block in front of her in shock. Is this thing a robot? Who are you? Jiang Qiuyi felt a bit confused in her mind. She was in some strange place. She thought it was a mysterious organization or laboratory that discovered her, but now everything she saw when she woke up exceeded her expectations. Hello child, I am Xiaobai, the second-generation parenting robot of the imperial government. Xiaobai detected the helplessness in Jiang Qiuyi's voice. Detected abnormal emotions, affinity mode has been turned on. Jiang Qiuyi stared blankly at the large iron block in front of her. The originally blue display screen turned pink, and there were two exaggerated big hearts dotted above the screen. Are these two eyes? Children, please don't be afraid. Do you need any help? The robot named Xiaobai changed his tone to a slightly gentle one, as if coaxing the child. But in Jiang Qiuyi's eyes, there was a hint of strangeness. A big iron lump called her child with a cold mechanical sound with a metallic texture, which made people want to call the police in place. Jiang Qiuyi looked around the rudimentary small room, which was estimated to be over 50 square meters. In addition to the bed under her, there was also a small metal coffee table. There is not even a small stool, the furniture is just a bed and a strange little coffee table, and there is no iron knot robot left. Jiang Qiuyi lay in bed with a mind full of question marks, but she still tried to find out where she was first. Her phone was probably lost in that sudden accident. Looking at the empty room, there was suddenly a commotion, and Jiang Qiuyi instinctively looked towards the position at the door. The door of the room was automatically opened, and a little boy wearing black clothes walked in, holding a small plate with a tube filled with green liquid, walking towards Jiang Qiuyi. Jiang Qiuyi saw a little boy about 10 years old walk in and breathed a sigh of relief. Even though she was in a state of mental health, she could still sense something was wrong. She was saved by someone, but Jiang Qiuyi couldn't make up her mind about who saved her. Generally, she should be in the hospital, not in this weird room. Suddenly, Jiang Qiuyi thought that when she was soaked in gel before, there were two people with non-mainstream hairstyles. Sister, are you okay? Jiang Wen spoke hesitantly. He heard Jiang Qiuyi speak just now, but he couldn't understand what she was saying. He was originally picking up some recyclable low-grade metals with his grandfather on G28 mining star. Unexpectedly, his grandfather suddenly had an accident. He became an orphan in the empire and was supposed to go to a welfare home. However, he received a notification from Optic's brain that he had another relative in danger after comparing the gene pool. Jiang Wen looked curiously at Jiang Qiuyi on the bed. Before his grandfather passed away, his family had been living on the mining star for generations, and Jiang Wen had always relied on his grandfather. He thought there were no relatives in the world. As a result, another relative emerged, but it was a notice sent by the government's optoelectronic brain and compared information through the gene bank. It is common sense that the imperial optoelectronic brain cannot make mistakes. Jiang Qiuyi looked cautiously at the little boy in front of him, who looked only 7 or 8 years old with light brown hair and brown pupils. He looked very obedient. But Jiang Qiuyi didn't dare to let go of her guard. Since she woke up, she had no idea where she was. Apart from the 2 non-mainstream big brothers she had seen before, the third person she saw was the little boy in front of her. Jiang Wen waited for a while and saw that Jiang Qiuyi had no reaction. He walked to the wall and casually pressed the white wall, instantly opening a hole. Then Jiang Wen took out a small item from the small grid, and the hole on the wall automatically closed. Jiang Qiuyi stared blankly at the action. Is this wall the latest black technology? Jiang Wen handed the small and exquisite translator to Jiang Qiuyi lying in bed, which he and his grandfather found in the slums last year. As soon as every imperial citizen is born, whether they are poor or of any status, they will receive the most basic education, so everyone's language is the same, and it is also the common language of the federal and imperial governments. Jiang Wen couldn't help but wonder if the people lying in bed grew up in some remote, impoverished, and unknown place. How could I not even understand interstellar common language? Thinking of this, Jiang Wen couldn't help but look at the person lying in bed and say, "Sister, this is a translator." Although Jiang Wen knew that the person in front of him couldn't understand, he still explained a sentence. Jiang Qiuyi looked at the little boy in front of her with a bewildered expression. If she hadn't misread it, was it a black earring? She really couldn't understand what the little boy was saying, and Jiang Qiuyi was devastated. At least she was also a chef at the national banquet level, and she received countless foreign guests. Is this the language of a minority tribe? Jiang Wen looked at Jiang Qiuyi, who was indifferent. The two of them looked at each other for a while before Jiang Wen withdrew his palm and gestured a gesture for Jiang Qiuyi to see. Jiang Qiuyi cautiously looked at the little boy's gesture in front of him, and hesitated to reach out to take the black earrings. Strangely, the black earrings automatically stuck on when they touched the skin. "Sister, can you understand me now?" Jiang Wen said nervously, although he is usually quiet in front of his classmates, so there are not many children playing with him. He is a bit shy and cautious when facing a guardian who is like a stranger. After Jiang Qiuyi put on the strange earrings, she found that she could understand the voice of the little boy in front of her. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Future. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Future. Sister, can you hear me? Jiang Wen looked at Jiang Qiuyi with a dull expression on his face, feeling anxious. After his money spent on this month's nutrient solution, there were no more coins left, so there shouldn't be any problem with this translator. "I can hear it," Jiang Qiuyi said with difficulty. "What's going on?" The little boy in front of her actually looks a bit like her nephew in elementary school. If it weren't for his brown hair and brown eyes, she would have suspected that he was an illegitimate child of her family. Strangely, with this black gadget on, Jiang Qiuyi spoke with an accent similar to that of the strange little boy in front of her, and she inexplicably understood what the latest black technology was. Jiang Wen breathed a sigh of relief when he heard Jiang Qiuyi's voice. He took out another tube of green liquid from the dark compartment on the wall and placed it in Jiang Qiuyi's palm. Sister, are you hungry? There's nutrient solution here. Jiang Wen looked at the nutrient solution in Jiang Qiuyi's hand with some heartache, which was a strawberry-flavored nutrient solution he had finally accumulated. He couldn't bear to eat, but his new sister was sick. To take care of her, he had to endure the pain and give up. Jiang Qiuyi looked at the eerie green liquid in the glass reagent tube, and felt something was wrong all over. The little boy's meaning was that this thing could actually be eaten. Jiang Qiuyi was about to refuse, but waves of emptiness gradually surfaced in her stomach. Her life in the past 2 days can be said to be earth-shattering. First, she went up the mountain to find ingredients and encountered an accident. Then there were those 2 strange people, who could be said to have not eaten for several days. She was really hungry, but she hesitated when looking at this thing that was like witch poison. Sister, this is very delicious, it's strawberry-flavored. Jiang Wen looked eagerly at the nutrient solution in Jiang Qiuyi's hand, and he also wanted to taste the strawberry-flavored nutrient solution specially developed by the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Jiang Qiuyi looked at the little boy's eager gaze, and for a moment, she felt that she couldn't starve to death. She took a sip of the nutrient solution as if she were dead. The taste is cheap essence and sweet. It can be said that she cannot taste a trace of strawberry, but has a strange bitter taste. But the strange thing is that a small mouthful of nutrient liquid makes her not hungry. As a famous chef, Jiang Qiuyi not only knows how to make a mouth, but also is known for being picky. After tasting a spooky nutrient solution, he never wants to take a second bite. Looking at the little boy staring at him eagerly in front of her, Jiang Qiuyi remained silent for a moment and handed the remaining nutrient solution to the little boy. Jiang Wen saw the nutrient solution handed over by Jiang Qiuyi, and his heart was very happy. His eyes were shining with joy and he said, "Sister, are these for me?" Jiang Qiuyi nodded and looked at the little boy in front of her, treating the leftover nutritional liquid she had eaten as a precious treasure. She was so happy that she couldn't help but feel a strange emotion in her heart. Jiang Qiuyi was foolish. She thought she had been saved by some scientific research institution, but what she didn't expect was that she unexpectedly came 1,000 years later. She had originally intended to use this little boy's words, but she didn't expect that one would be enough. She has traveled for 1,000 years now, realizing that humans have exchanged nature for the flourishing of technology, and then the blue star resources have dried up. At that time, the government had no choice but to abandon this planet without any resources and bring some well-known scientists and high-class members of society to search for new territories. After floating in the vast universe for about 500 years, a federal government and an imperial government were established in a resource-rich galaxy. After Jiang Qiuyi uttered these words, the whole person was not good. No wonder she woke up with only nutrient solution in the past few days. The world-renowned culinary culture had long been cut off due to various reasons. In today's technologically advanced world, everyone is accustomed to fast and portable nutrient solutions, and even food has become a monopoly of the big family's technology and a luxury item. Jiang Qiuyi sighed, "What is this?" The iron lump she woke up to see was actually an old parenting robot, a service robot that Jiang Wen was afraid of, or the kind that was about to be phased out 100 years ago. "Sister, why don't you drink nutrient solution?" Jiang Wen walked into the room. He was originally a bit shy, but these days, through contact with Jiang Qiuyi, he also fell in love with this new sister. Jiang Qiuyi sighed and looked at the nutrient solution with great worry. Apart from the last bottle of nutrient solution that Jiang Wen had collected for a long time that day, there was only the relief nutrient solution from the imperial government at home, which was as light as water without any taste. Although she was indeed full after drinking it, compared to real food, Jiang Qiuyi felt almost depressed. Giving her a pot of rice was more fragrant than this nutrient solution. Thinking of this, Jiang Qiuyi still forced herself to drink the nutrient solution in one gulp. Seeing Jiang Wen's satisfied expression, she couldn't help but shake her head. Now she has also figured out the situation. Not only did she travel 1,000 years later, but Jiang Qiuyi's household registration is still being processed. Due to Jiang Wen's reasons, the government treated her as an imperial citizen who accidentally disappeared during the war and was stranded on a remote planet. It was only natural for Jiang Qiuyi to become Jiang Wen's guardian. Jiang Qiuyi felt that fate had played a big joke on her, as she had traveled through such a miserable time, even though there were still many children who were related to her. The nutrient solution given to her by Jiang Wen was distributed by the imperial government to prevent people from starving to death. She is now like a pitiful little girl who can only pick up garbage and receive the imperial subsistence allowance. No, she doesn't even have an ID card and can't even get the subsistence allowance now. Thinking of this, Jiang Qiuyi couldn't help but feel sad from her heart. She was at least a descendant of the imperial chef, and how could she have managed to earn subsistence allowance on her own? Watching Jiang Wen treat the free nutritional liquid distributed by the government as a treasure, she couldn't help but sigh. With the development of technology, humans have long eliminated food, but there is still a part that retains the most basic cooking techniques. The prices of ingredients are not expensive but very difficult to obtain, and most vegetables and fruits have become ornamental plants. Because no one knows how to do it, they don't spend time and energy researching it, and it's almost disappearing. In the past century, only some nobles have been foolishly pretending to be superior, and some of the cooking methods that have been passed down have not continued to disappear. Thinking of this, Jiang Qiuyi couldn't help but feel that her heart attack was about to come out. She had to eat strange and tasteless nutrient solutions every day, which could really be said to be deadly. Jiang Wen looked at Jiang Qiuyi, whose face was full of collapse, and thought she was holding a grudge against her identity as a black household. She said, "Sister, don't be unhappy. The government officials are already handling it." Jiang Qiuyi sighed, and now she is still a gangster, and a woman born under natural genes. When going out in danger, there is no guarantee. It can be said that even if she thinks she is unlucky, the gods cannot save her. So Jiang Wen was afraid that Jiang Qiuyi might have an accident, and many of the suspended vehicles on the facilities and roads were aimed at imperial citizens with certificates. However, it is obvious that Jiang Qiuyi's identity as a black household is also difficult to move forward. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Current situation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Current situation. Jiang Qiuyi looked extremely desperate, and she understood the truth. Even without a travel time and an ID card, it was a big problem. Moreover, in the era of technological development reaching its peak, she was like a living target. Jiang Qiuyi let out a deep sigh in her heart and looked at the young boy with a delicate appearance and a caring face in front of her, saying, "I'm not unhappy. Aren't you going to class?" Jiang Wen obediently shook his head. He took a leave of absence on his computer this afternoon because he was worried that his new sister would be afraid at home. Although some things have become incredibly fast with the development of technology, the school will never be eliminated. His talent is quite good. At the age of 7, his physical training level had already reached level 2. It's a miracle on this abandoned mining star, so many teachers treat him very well. As long as he grows up and works hard to get into a military academy, he can take his grandfather out of this dangerous slum. Unexpectedly, his grandfather is gone. The only way for poor people in the highly hierarchical empire to change their destiny is through their own talents, and to achieve success, they also rely on money to make a fortune. Jiang Wen couldn't help but keep staring at Jiang Qiuyi. He had also seen some natural women on TV, but none of them had smooth black hair like his new sister, and those black pupils were rare to see. "I took a leave this afternoon, sister. How come your eyes and hair are black?" Jiang Wen looked at Jiang Qiuyi curiously, wanting to reach out and touch the black hair. Jiang Qiuyi was about to say something natural when she heard these words, but suddenly felt something was wrong on her lips. When she woke up, she met the 2 killer mattresses, as well as Jiang Wen's light brown hair and a pair of light brown pupils in front of her. She suddenly had an unpleasant premonition. Is it strange? She looked at the little boy in front of her and spoke with some uncertainty. Jiang Wen shook his head and said, "It's not surprising, just that there are fewer people of the same kind." Jiang Wen is telling the truth that there are relatively few people with black hair, but it is not surprising because people nowadays have hair of any color due to the depletion of blue star resources, severe pollution, and genetic diseases. Jiang Qiuyi breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing this. She was now a gangster, and if her black hair caught people's attention, it would not be worth the loss. Thinking of this, Jiang Qiuyi felt that the world was playing tricks on her. Did she only worship the god of wealth during the Chinese New Year instead of Guanyin? That's why Jiang Qiuyi encountered such an unlucky situation. Thinking of this, Jiang Qiuyi felt extremely frustrated. She didn't know how the old man was now. With her talent and sweat, she supported the Jiang family, resulting in such a big accident. I also don't know if the old man would feel uncomfortable knowing the news of her accident. Although cooking is particularly simple, becoming a chef is definitely not as simple as it appears on the surface. If it weren't for the lack of talent among young people in the Jiang family, Mr. Jiang wouldn't have put in a lot of effort to cultivate Jiang Qiuyi wholeheartedly. But now that she can't go back, she can only take a step and see. Jiang Qiuyi couldn't help but collapse in her heart. What these are all things, but people's acceptance often improves. Jiang Qiuyi comforted herself in her heart and at least saved a small life. Jiang Wen also wanted to ask the new sister if she was hungry or if she wanted to drink nutrient solution, but she was afraid that the new sister wouldn't like him. He still relies heavily on this only relative in his heart. He has always relied on his grandfather for survival. He thought Jiang Wen could only go to the orphanage, but he didn't expect to have an extra sister. He doesn't want an orphanage, and the children who go to the orphanage are pitiful and have no family. During the days when Grandpa had an accident, Jiang Wen felt so uncomfortable that he didn't want to go to school. Many teachers were looking at him with pitiful eyes, and many classmates were whispering about him behind his back. Although Jiang Wen is only 8 years old, he has also suffered a lot of disapproval due to his family background, so he is a bit nervous and afraid that his new sister will not like him. Whether it was the child's emotions written on her face or not, Jiang Qiuyi's expression collapsed as she looked at little curly hair. She had never raised a child, but these days with Jiang Wen, it was also evident that the child was really well behaved. Jiang Qiuyi learned from her aunt's tone of coaxing her son and softly said, "What's wrong with Xiaowen?" Upon hearing Jiang Qiuyi's gentle voice, Jiang Wen lowered his head and quickly looked at her again before hesitating and saying, "Sister, don't you like me? I will work hard to go to school and become a soldier in the future. The simplest way to rise to power in the empire is to become a soldier, otherwise most classes are very difficult to cross." Jiang Wen's academic performance is very good, and he has always wanted to grow up quickly and be admitted to the Imperial Military Academy. Jiang Qiuyi was stunned when she heard these words. The child's insight was a bit frightening. As soon as she woke up, she crossed over and inexplicably became the child's guardian, which was really difficult to accept. Looking into Jiang Wen's clear eyes, Jiang Qiuyi rubbed his head and said, "Without me, how could I not like you? Sister is just a bit emotional. From now on, you will be my younger brother. We are a family and should get along well." Jiang Qiuyi silently sighed in her heart. What she said was the truth. Now that she is the guardian of this child, she cannot ignore it no matter what. Jiang Wen breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing these words, and then nodded forcefully, "Sister, I will be obedient." Jiang Qiuyi suddenly didn't know what to say. This child is really too well behaved, and she also figured out the current situation. The only guardian of this child has passed away. She traveled across the country and was rescued by the government. After searching the gene bank, she discovered that she is a relative and an adult, so she became this guardian in a confused way. Now she and Jiang Wen live in a government-subsidized house, because Jiang Wen's talent is good and he is still studying. Regardless of where he is, the government will find ways to improve educational resources. As a guardian, Jiang Qiuyi didn't sleep on the street and still dragged away Jiang Wen's blessings. Jiang Qiuyi sighed, and now she is really poor and penniless. Fortunately, although it was a bit troublesome to apply for her identity, it was still resolved. Currently, the most unbearable thing is that she is about to starve to death. Jiang Wen has government subsidies, but Jiang Qiuyi doesn't have any education or anything, and she can't even apply for a subsistence allowance. Thinking of Jiang Qiuyi, I feel that the heavens have definitely played a huge joke on her. Fortunately, Jiang Qiuyi's mentality is still good. After the initial collapse, she still comforts herself optimistically. It's better to travel to the future than to be buried in the mountains. Although the current situation is not as good as being buried in the mountains, Jiang Qiuyi rubbed the child's head as he looked at Jiang Wen with worried eyes. Now we can only study what the future holds. At least Jiang Qiuyi is also a famous state banquet chef, and there is definitely no shortage of people who want to eat her dishes. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Wants to make money. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Wants to make money. Jiang Qiuyi has been traveling to the future for over half a month now, and it can be said that she has reached a new height of poverty, especially when it comes to supporting herself and Jiang Wen. Fortunately, as a student, most of Jiang Wen's expenses are borne by the government. Thinking of this, Jiang Qiuyi couldn't help but sigh. Although she has a household registration, she does not have a degree, let alone the mental strength. This means that ordinary workers cannot make it, especially in such a resource-scarce small garbage star located on the border. When she traveled here, she was very disgusted with nutrient solution. Now that she thinks about having nutrient solution, it would be great. At least she didn't starve to death by camping on the streets. Jiang Qiuyi sold the recyclable metal she picked up to the recycling station, collected scrap metal, and then sold it to the recycling station. It was the only thing she could do now, although it was dirty and tiring, there was nothing she could do. Autumn, you're here again. A brown-haired uncle looked at the thin and weak figure and quickly stepped forward to help. In the future where the average person is 1.8 meters, Jiang Qiuyi was originally considered very tall among the girls, but here she is simply short and thin. Jiang Qing gave Jiang Qiuyi a low-level disguiser, turning her originally fair skin into a dark shade, and then hiding her hair in a somewhat worn-out hat, looking like a little boy who couldn't distinguish between male and female. Jiang Qiuyi's hair is not too long and only extends to the back of her ear. After all, she is a chef in China. Her hair is too long, which inevitably makes people feel unsanitary. However, during her time in the interstellar world, her hair has grown a lot. She originally wanted to just cut it off, but Jiang Wen refused to let her cut it, so Jiang Qiuyi couldn't resist Jiang Wen hiding her hair in his hat. Hiding the characteristics of women may not be very useful in disguise with the advancement of technology, but it is still better to be careful in such a chaotic place. Although Veda is a planet with a very small presence in the universe, it is particularly chaotic due to its lack of presence. Any star thief fugitive likes to hide on this planet, so Jiang Qiuyi dare not joke about her personal safety, so she is still careful sailing on a ship of 10,000 years. Good afternoon, Uncle Adawa, Jiang Qiuyi said obediently as she looked at the uncle with a Western face in front of her. This person was the administrator of the recycling bin and used to be friends with Jiang Wen's grandfather, so she also knew about Jiang Wen and Jiang Qiuyi's situation. She would take more care of these two children. Good afternoon, Xiao Wen has gone to school, right? Uncle Adawa quickly put the scrap metal picked up by Jiang Qiuyi into the recycling machine and began to evaluate it. Looking at Jiang Qiuyi, he couldn't help but feel pity in his heart. Since the 60 technological reforms, human lifespan has been very long, so it is rare to see young girls. When he heard about Jiang Qiuyi's background, he couldn't help but feel sorry for this child. Thinking of this, Uncle Adawa looked at Jiang Qiuyi and said, "Put in a total of 170 star coins. Take these 3 generations of nutritional liquid, don't think they are eliminated." "Thank you, Uncle Adawa." Jiang Qiuyi reached out to take the nutrient solution and quickly thanked her. She was about to vomit after drinking it, but now that she has the nutrient solution, it's not bad. Most people living in poverty-stricken areas are not doing well either, so this care is really timely rain, and she doesn't mind it being a discarded nutrient solution. The war between the Empire and the Federation has been over for decades, but no matter what period it is, the war is always extremely cruel. Even in the era of cold weapons, the end of the war is over. However, the planets and civilians that have been guarded by large destructive weapons and the wounded have always been shrouded in dark clouds. Some of the people living in poverty-stricken areas have been displaced due to war. She heard from Jiang Wen that this place was not an abandoned mining star before, but now it has become so desolate and cannot be separated from war. Jiang Qiuyi couldn't help but worry as she looked at the increasingly dark sky. Before crossing the river, she couldn't be said to have a fortune of over 100 million, but at least she was also a little rich woman. However, after crossing the river, she was so poor that she was about to pick up and sell bottles. It remains to be seen whether there will be bottles in the future. Jiang Qiuyi carefully walked through the dilapidated streets where even high tech couldn't cover up the mess. She asked Jiang Wen the other day why he and his grandfather didn't live in a safe place since this chaotic group. Then Jiang Wen fell silent for a moment, and Jiang Qiuyi understood that it was not because Jiang Wen's grandfather did not want it, but because he could not. Veda Star was divided into an inner city and an outer city, and most of the people living in the outer city were impoverished households who received subsistence allowances like Jiang Wen's grandfather, as well as black households and other mixed fish and dragon people. And the inner city is the best place for public security in the chaotic Veda Star, where most of the residents are small bourgeois families and government officials, including the wealthy. It is a truly wealthy district, and the first qualification to enter is for you to be a skilled, highly educated, skilled, or mentally capable soldier. The only way for these elderly, weak, sick, and disabled people is to buy a house with star coins. Jiang Qiuyi studied star coins. Unlike traditional Chinese currency that can be exchanged for different countries according to demand, star coins are a common currency between the federal government and the empire. All technologically advanced civilizations recognize the value of star coins as a universal currency. Star coins are still very stable and will not depreciate severely due to large-scale wars. The purchasing power of one star coin is approximately equivalent to 1 yuan in China. Thinking of this, Jiang Qiuyi really feels like her hair is about to fall off. The star coins she exchanged just now were only over 100 yuan, and she still needs to pay for all the expenses next month. Buying nutritional supplements alone is not enough to make ends meet. The key is to figure out how to make money. Jiang Qiuyi sighed. She couldn't even make it out of poverty now. If the old man knew that the descendants of the Jiang family were like this, he was afraid they would go crazy. The ancestors of the Jiang family could collectively crawl out of the ground. "Sister, you're back." Jiang Wen stood at the door, looking around. Although he knew that his sister had gone to Uncle Avada's place to recycle scrap metal, he also liked Uncle Avada who would pick him up every time he saw him. Jiang Qiuyi looked at Jiang Wen waiting for her at the door, and her sadness faded a bit. Xiao Wen is about to enter the house, it's cold outside. The climate of Veda Star is extremely peculiar, which may be due to excessive mining and pollution. During the day, the sky is clear and the temperature is suitable for thousands of miles. At night, the temperature drops by more than 20 degrees directly. Jiang Qiuyi is enjoying himself and thinks that growing grapes in this place with such a large temperature difference between day and night is definitely delicious. Unfortunately, she can't find the grape seedlings now and can only drink the nutrient solution bitterly, thinking about the sweet taste of grapes. Her taste buds, which have been ravaged by the nutrient solution, have already withered. "Look what I've brought you," Jiang Qiuyi handed Jiang Wen a tube of red nutrient solution. She had been here for so many days and knew that colored nutrient solutions represented different flavors. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Calculation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Calculation. This watermelon-flavored nutrient solution was mixed by Uncle Avada into his own nutrient solution. People living on the outskirts are not only from various black households like star thieves, but at most they are still poor ordinary people. However, the situation of the Jiang family is quite special, and many people who know them know that Jiang Wen's grandfather is a good person and pities him, so they often take care of him quietly. But everyone's days were tough, and Jiang Qiuyi kept this hidden thoughtfulness and kindness in her heart. Looking at the surprise in Jiang Wen's eyes, Jiang Qiuyi sighed in her heart. In her eyes, this flavorful nutrient solution tasted the same as the 3-no snacks mixed with saccharin and pigments before. But now the situation is special, and having nutrient solution is not bad. After paying the miscellaneous expenses and daily nutrient solution for 2 people, they have almost emptied their own pockets. Moreover, the cheapest nutrient solution can only fill up half a day, not only has no taste like plain water, but also costs 10 stars per bottle. Fortunately, Jiang Wen is still a student. Her food, accommodation, and education, including some miscellaneous expenses and medical expenses, are all covered by the imperial government. Without Jiang Wen, she wouldn't have been able to live in such a strange house. Jiang Wen was pleasantly surprised to see the red nutrient solution in his sister's hand. This is the watermelon-flavored nutrient solution. During class, he learned that watermelon was the most common fruit among the ancient Blue Star people, and it was re-cultivated by researchers 100 years ago. Although watermelon-flavored nutrient solution is considered a bad street nowadays, Jiang Wen still hasn't tasted it. Although he is still young, he knows that a 35-star nutrient solution is definitely a luxury item for his family. Sister, let's split it into 2 parts. Jiang Wen looked at the nutrient solution with eager eyes, but he knew it was so good that he couldn't drink it alone. He looked at Jiang Qiuyi, who had taken off the disguiser and revealed her fair skin, feeling particularly happy in his heart. After all, none of the other classmates have such a beautiful sister. He will drive a very powerful mecha in the future and become a very powerful person, so that his sister can drink such delicious nutritional liquid every day. No need, I'll give it to you. Sister doesn't like this. Jiang Qiuyi looked at Jiang Wen with a soft heart and reached out to rub his small curly hair. Then she racked her brains trying to find a way to make money. This way, it really wouldn't work. After half a month of getting along, Jiang Qiuyi went from being uncomfortable at the beginning to opening up her heart, and then she was worried about not being able to do it. She consulted with the government that if she didn't take care of Jiang Wen, he would have to go to a welfare institution. Jiang Qiuyi felt a bit sour in her heart. It would be better for Jiang Wen to go to a welfare institution than to stay by her side, but she couldn't bear to have her 7-year-old child homeless. And Jiang Wen is very clingy to her, and she can also see that Jiang Wen is afraid that she won't want him. Sister, today the teacher praised me again. Jiang Wen raised his head with sparkling eyes, looking forward to Jiang Qiuyi praising him. It's really impressive, Jiang Qiuyi exclaimed in a very exaggerated tone, and then she saw Jiang Wen looking at her shyly, but with a smug expression on his face. Jiang Qiuyi reached out and rudely rubbed Jiang Wen's curly hair twice, getting used to the mischievous little bear children jumping up and down in the old house. It was truly strange to encounter such a well-behaved little angel like Jiang Wen. Xiao Wen, take a break, sister. Jiang Qiuyi looked at the well-behaved Jiang Wen and couldn't help but sigh in her heart that she felt she didn't like children very much, and that they were very noisy and mischievous. Now it seems that it's not that she doesn't like children, but rather that she only likes obedient and mischievous children like obedient little angels like Jiang Wen. Jiang Wen nodded obediently, no matter when it developed to the point where homework did not disappear. It was also when Jiang Wen went to the optical brain to do homework. The optical brain was actually a holographic virtual network, and his homework was all done on the optical brain. Jiang Qiuyi took out a small object, which was a shield, and divided the original room with a projection to form her own small room. Jiang Qiuyi lay on the small bed, calculating today's profits. The largest amount was certainly over 100 star coins for selling scrap, but these over 100 star coins could only cover expenses for 2 to 3 weeks. Now all the things in the Jiang family add up to only over 4,000 stars. The money in her account is inherited from Grandpa Jiang, but this amount of money is not enough to cover several months of expenses. Thinking of this, Jiang Qiuyi can no longer remember how much she sighed, and she has also considered doing her old job. But spending 4,000 yuan to buy ingredients and seasonings is not enough, let alone in the current interstellar era. Whether rich or poor, the vast majority of people make a living with nutrient solutions. After all, nutrient solutions are not only convenient but also sufficient. Even the worst nutrient solutions can ensure that they can quickly meet all the nutritional needs of the human body. The disadvantage is that it lacks taste, but for the imperial people, it is simply not a problem. They quickly developed a flour from nutrient solution, and of course, they value portability, simplicity, and meeting the nutritional requirements of the body. In this way, robots and technology can simplify complex tasks, and of course, it will eliminate the hassle of cooking. But there is also a small group of interstellar enthusiasts who enjoy cooking, but due to technological gaps, the finished product is not as simple and convenient as nutrient solution, and the taste is also very strange. In Jiang Qiuyi's eyes, these are all fine. She has considered setting up a street stall, a fine tradition of human beings from ancient times to the present day. However, there is a very pitfalls here. Even if she can buy the cheapest ingredient from the star network, it is something very similar to potatoes, but it is not called a potato. It is called a rhizome plant, abbreviated as number 1. Because the leaves are particularly green, it is a very common potted plant with green leaves. Of course, it is marked as edible, otherwise Jiang Qiuyi would not have noticed it. Jiang Qiuyi calculated the cost. If she only sells French fries and doesn't even have tomato sauce, then the cost of each small portion is 40 stars. If she wants to make money, the price must be above 50 stars. Jiang Qiuyi carefully thought about it and realized that interstellar express delivery has become very mature. Technological advancements have allowed StarNet to simulate a completely synchronized taste. If she sells it to a small group of culinary enthusiasts, this business is not impossible. But what's particularly frustrating is that if she wants to open an online store on star.com, she must pay a fee of 30,000 star coins, plus she has to pay a special fee of 3,000 for the food she sells. Setting up a street stall is not a bad idea, but if it fails, there will be no loss at all, and the frying utensils for French fries are also expensive. As long as they come with kitchen utensils, they will cost at least 5,000 stars. Jiang Qiuyi only felt that it was really a headache. She finally understood what it meant to be a hero who couldn't be defeated by a penny. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Star Network. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Star Network. The people in interstellar space attach more than just 1 or 2 points to copyright awareness, but cover various industries. Jiang Qiuyi sighed and can only examine it for now. She now understands why food has become a disconnect. In the face of resource depletion, humans will only find ways to help more people survive. Therefore, many recipes and materials that have been passed down for thousands of years, even if left behind, have disappeared due to years of war. The fundamental reason is that the function of nutrient solution is truly unbeatable. It can quickly supplement most of the nutrients needed by a person's body in 1 minute, so time-consuming and laborious dishes will naturally be eliminated, just like the market of instant noodles before crossing the border is also squeezed by takeout. Moreover, the existence of nutrient solutions is not only for quickly supplementing the nutrients needed by the human body, but also a very powerful tool during wartime. The most portable military rations, which has created a gap in the current food culture, or in other words, there is no need for cooking and no market. Not only has the food not been passed down, but most of the seasonings and soy sauce are also lacking. Jiang Qiuyi's cooking skills are outstanding, and she has talent, but a clever woman cannot cook without rice. Jiang Qiuyi felt really headache at the thought of this. Although there are many dishes that don't require so many complex seasonings, the difficulty is that there is no market without demand. But she really feels regretful that the culture that has been passed down for thousands of years has disappeared like this, because people in the future do not need cooking, so the treasure of food has been cruelly eliminated and abandoned in the vast sea of stars. As the descendant and inheritor of the imperial chef, Jiang Qiuyi's heart is really uncomfortable. Jiang Qiuyi rubbed her forehead. Although her heart was full of mixed feelings, she could only take one step at a time now. Before crossing over, she had always been the youngest generation in her family, and she also had a lot of pocket money every month. It can be said that she had never made a mistake for money since childhood, which can be imagined as being poor and worthless now. Jiang Qiuyi sat on the bed, and while the government was helping her with her identity registration, she also implanted a light brain in her hand. Jiang Qiuyi looked at her fair wrist with a strange expression, with a thin, small chip beneath her skin that was invisible to the naked eye. Jiang Qiuyi closed her eyes, and as soon as she opened them, she saw herself in the personal space of the star network. Curiously, she looked left and right in the star network space, and when the novelty had passed, she looked at the empty starry background of her own space. Suddenly, an advertisement about a live streaming website popped up, and Jiang Qiuyi clicked on the website introduction. This is the largest live streaming website in interstellar space, and the anchor alone has a base of several hundred million. Jiang Qiuyi casually searched through countless channels and found the food channel. Surprisingly, although there are few live broadcast rooms on the food channel, the popularity is very high. Jiang Qiuyi watched several live broadcast rooms and found that most of the hosts were diners. Looking at the luxurious decorated big houses in the live broadcast rooms, Jiang Qiuyi could tell that these were all the wealthy levels in the interstellar world. Jiang Qiuyi frowned and looked at it for a while, only to realize that there were some things that were not right. Before traveling, the food bloggers were like 100 flowers blooming, but in interstellar space, it was very strange. Only diners who tasted it did not have food tutorials. Jiang Qiuyi left the live broadcast room and searched for cooking tutorials on Xinhuang, but neither the live broadcast nor the video could find any tutorials or similar content. After thinking for a moment, Jiang Qiuyi clicked on the forum and anonymously posted a post asking why there were no anchors or video bloggers for food tutorials. As soon as the post was posted, someone commented below. Today we also have a mecha class. Are you joking? Masters will share food tutorials. Have you not woken up yet? From the Kakana Galaxy. I have never understood the meaning of cooking. Can't nutrient solutions handle everything? Anonymous user 2333. The one upstairs is right. Imperial nobles like to make these flashy and impractical things. Before the end of the war for more than 100 years, what ancient scholars do in cuisine is useless. On the contrary, the federal government is much more pragmatic. Anonymous user 36477. What kind of discrimination is being done upstairs? The empire and the federal government have been at war for so long, and you still need to stir up public opinion. Nutrient liquid is good, and who drinks that thing without fighting? Only the poor will drink it. I would rather eat Candelot all day, and if I have money, I would go to the restaurant every day. Jiang Qiuyi looked at the constantly rising posts, which were so crooked that she couldn't stand them. Suddenly, she noticed a problem. Although the food market was impacted by nutrient solutions, they had no taste. During this period, she relied on nutrient solutions to almost make her drink and become autistic. Although she was lucky enough to cross over and just ended the war. The reason why nutrient solution is popular is because it is convenient, but before crossing over, compressed biscuits are also exceptionally convenient. A small piece can provide a lot of energy, but no one treats compressed biscuits as 3 meals a day. It's just that nutrient solution has a higher technical content than compressed biscuits. Jiang Qiuyi thought for a moment and clicked on the search bar, then looked up the lives of ordinary people. Then it was discovered that although most ordinary people in the empire also eat nutritional supplements as food, they also go to some restaurants. Although the prices of most restaurants are very expensive, they can still afford the next few restaurants with the income of ordinary people. Jiang Qiuyi discovered that there was not a lack of market, but rather due to the war, the cooking technology remained at the basic level of boiling water. After the ceasefire, the interstellar people have been slowly exploring the field of cuisine, which is equivalent to being in a state of waiting for improvement in research. The advancement of technology has enabled the optical brain to simulate the taste of food, but it is necessary to purchase this function. Several live streaming rooms where Jiang Qiuyi entered have enabled this function, no wonder the taste is strange. Originally, there were no recipes or information, so she had to use it herself. Jiang Qiuyi can become a chef for a state banquet in her 20s. In addition to her own talent, she also relied on her family's inheritance to become a famous chef under the influence of Mr. Jiang and thousands of years of Chinese culinary culture. Jiang Qiuyi thought of this and instantly forgave what she had just tasted in the live broadcast room. Sour or tasteless food, humans had just invented robots and many artificial intelligence disabilities, so this really can't be blamed on the interstellar people. If she stands on the giant of Chinese culinary culture, then the interstellar beings are purely in their early stages of exploration and exploration. Jiang Qiuyi didn't know what to do when she thought about this. Although she was skilled in cooking, she was still in a state of about to drink the wind. Thinking about the live broadcast she had just watched, Jiang Qiuyi suddenly had an idea in her mind. If there were no food blogger, she could come, but Jiang Qiuyi is now so poor that buying ingredients alone can leave her wallet empty. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Roasted Sweet Potatoes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Roasted Sweet Potatoes. Jiang Qiuyi looked at the constantly increasing posts and decided to register an account on the largest video website first. Then I started to check the price of a simulator that could simulate the taste, and looking at that string of zeros, Jiang Qiuyi really wanted to brainwash her. Isn't this bullying her and being a poor person? Although I understand that being a blogger requires a certain threshold, it's too high. When Jiang Qiuyi was feeling overwhelmed, she found out that Jiang Wen had sent her a private message, so she tidied up and went offline. After Jiang Qiuyi withdrew from his optical brain, he saw Jiang Wen holding something in his arms. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Jiang Wen happily approaching him and placing that thing in front of Jiang Qiuyi, as if offering a treasure. Sister, this was given to me by the aunt next door. She said that you can grow beautiful flowers without putting it in nutrient solution and spraying some water. Jiang Wen's voice was cheerful. Although most people living in the slums do not live well, it does not prevent everyone from yearning for beauty. For the common people, green plants and flowers may be everywhere, but they can be considered luxury goods here. Jiang Qiuyi stared at what was in Jiang Wen's hand for a moment before subconsciously speaking, "Isn't this sweet potato? Sister, do you know me?" The aunt next door said this is a dala flower, which blooms purple, Jiang Wen asked obediently. He likes this sister very much, so he will instinctively behave better when facing her. In this place, children who are always cute and lovely will be loved by adults. Jiang Qiuyi rubbed Jiang Wen's cute curly hair. After traveling for so long, she still felt that this child was really too obedient. She even pinched her soft and fluffy little face. Jiang Wen looked at Jiang Qiuyi with bright eyes, a little shy and blushing. Jiang Qiuyi took the sweet potato from Jiang Wen's hand, feeling a bit complicated. Listening to Jiang Wen's words, sweet potatoes are actually a kind of green plant here. Looking at the things in his hand, his mind drifted through, baked sweet potatoes, sweet potato balls, fried sweet potatoes, and so on. It can bloom, most of the flowers are white on the outside and purple on the inside, like a trumpet, very cute, Jiang Qiuyi recalled for a moment, as if she understood why people in the future will treat sweet potatoes as green plants. Sweet potato flowers are indeed very cute, but she still prefers roasted sweet potatoes. Jiang Qiuyi lowered her head and looked at the thin skin and pointed sweet potatoes in her hand. In fact, the most suitable variety for roasting sweet potatoes is the red heart sweet potato. Jiang Wen clearly gave a different variety, which is specifically for viewing. Jiang Qiuyi took 2 seconds to ask Jiang Wen, "Do you want to eat roasted sweet potatoes?" Jiang Wen was stunned and lowered his head in confusion, saying, "Sister, can I eat this?" Jiang Qiuyi nodded and then found something similar to a thin film to wrap the sweet potatoes in place of tin foil. She then took over the box for storing the nutrient solution, which was very strange. The temperature could be set to a maximum of around 8 degrees Celsius and a minimum of -50 degrees Celsius. It was mainly used to store the nutrient solution, but she thought it could serve as an oven. Jiang Wen looked curiously at Jiang Qiuyi's movements, and only when Jiang Qiuyi had set the temperature did he ask curiously, "Sister, what are you doing?" When Jiang Qiuyi was in school, every winter evening during self-study, there was an old man selling stir-fried chestnuts and roasted sweet potatoes, and the fragrance was carried by the wind. Jean Can had a fragrance inside, and as soon as she opened her hand, her mouth was filled with sweet, sticky, and hot air, enough to make her forget the cold wind in winter. Roasting sweet potatoes, they are very delicious, Jiang Qiuyi answered Jiang Wen's question and then stared at the small box. When time came, Jiang Qiuyi took out the sweet potatoes from the box. The newly emerged sweet potatoes were particularly hot. Jiang Qiuyi carefully opened them and saw the golden inside, and the aroma burst out with his movements. Then he handed Jiang Wen a small piece and whispered, "Try it." At the moment Jiang Wen took out the dala flower seeds, his eyes widened and a fragrance that he had never smelled before spread out, as if it could really be eaten. Jiang Wen carefully took it and took a small bite, and the sweet and sticky taste spread in his mouth, a taste he had never tasted before. Jiang Qiuyi was also pleasantly surprised. She thought that the variety she was using for viewing might not have the same taste as the specialized red heart sweet potatoes. Unexpectedly, the taste was even better. Good roasted sweet potatoes can be used as desserts, which is something she has been eating for so long, apart from nutritional supplements. The roasted sweet potatoes are actually not big. Although it may not be enough for 2 people to eat half of them, it is enough to satisfy their cravings, especially for someone like Jiang Qiuyi who has been tormented by nutrient solution. This bite really gives a tearful feeling. Jiang Wen finished the piece in his hand, and there was still a sweet and fragrant taste in his mouth. For the first time, he knew that the seeds that would bloom were so delicious. He eagerly looked at a small piece in Jiang Qiuyi's hand and then said, "Sister is so amazing. She is a chef." Jiang Qiuyi looked at the sweet potato in her hand and suddenly said, "If we set up a stall to sell roasted sweet potatoes, will there be any business?" After speaking, Jiang Qiuyi thought this idea was too good. She opened her computer and searched for products, only to find that it was a blessing for someone like her who had no money or anything. Roasted sweet potatoes with almost no cost were really very friendly. After all, sweet potatoes are well known for their good planting and cultivation, so the interstellar price of green plants is also very low, with 7 or 8 being bought for 1,000 star coins. If she were to sell roasted sweet potatoes in the slums, although she could only sell them at a small profit margin because everyone was suffering, the Jiang family was better off than the current situation. Jiang Wen strongly agreed with Jiang Qiuyi's idea, so Jiang Qiuyi's small stall quickly came out. Jiang Qiuyi packed the disguiser and set up a stall at the junction of the inner and outer cities. Although there were many people mixed with good and bad, the majority were affordable for ordinary people. The price was over 10 stars, and as expected, the aroma of roasted sweet potatoes filled the small stall with people. "What kind of cuisine do you sell, young man? How much does it cost?" A woman holding a child walked up to her. Her husband was doing some low-level work in the inner city, and only extravagantly spent a few thousand stars on important days. He went to eat the cheapest dishes on the star network, and couldn't move when he smelled the fragrance. She was a bit surprised that there were people selling dishes in this rundown place. Smelling the taste made her drool. If the price didn't exceed 500 stars, she would buy one and try it out. You should know that her husband only earns 4,000 Singapore dollars a month. Jiang Qiuyi replied with a changed voice, "Madam, this is roasted sweet potato, 200 stars per serving." As soon as this was said, many people around the stall heard it. The woman who had just spoken with her child also said, "Young man, give me 2 portions." There are also people who are watching and walking forward. The price of 200 star coins can be said to be very cheap, but most people are also reluctant to buy a few fruit-flavored nutritional liquids. Jiang Qiuyi breathed a sigh of relief, finally opening up. It was her first time selling, and she didn't dare to make too much of it. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. First Barrel of Gold. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. First Barrel of Gold. Jiang Qiuyi quickly filled up 2 grilled sweet potatoes and handed them to the woman just now with nimble hands and feet. Her disguise was the cheapest and could only blur out the original voice, making the clear female voice indistinguishable, but it was still sufficient here. Jiang Qiuyi watched with satisfaction as the star coins were transferred into her account, and then instructed, "Freshly baked sweet potatoes will be quite hot, so be careful when eating them." The little boy standing next to the woman couldn't help but smell the sweet smell and held his mother's hand to swallow his saliva. When his mother broke a small piece for him, the thin sweet potato skin couldn't hide the softness and sweetness inside. The little boy couldn't wait to take a big bite. Unable to resist being scalded, the little boy covered his mouth but couldn't bear to spit out the meat. The sweet and fluffy flesh filled his mouth and he swallowed everything. The little boy eagerly looked at his mother and said, "Eat well, I still want it." Jiang Qiuyi's small stall was bustling with activity. Watching the little boy eating so well and smelling the tempting smell in the air, although some people thought that 200 star coins were still a bit expensive, it was still acceptable to indulge in a luxurious drink of nutritional liquid. The sweet taste in the air was really tempting. "Little brother, I want 2 portions, give me a portion, quickly." Jiang Qiuyi's small stall was surrounded. When the last sweet potato was sold, Jiang Qiuyi looked at the account numbers displayed on the computer screen and felt very happy. Setting up the stall was also too joyful, right? Looking at the first bucket of gold in my account, I feel particularly happy. Jiang Qiuyi put away her makeshift folding stall. She actually kept a few and distributed them to those who had helped her when she returned home. If it weren't for these kind-hearted people, she and Jiang Wen would have been almost cold. She just crossed over and couldn't even open a door, just like those elderly people who don't know how to use smartphones. Returning to the small house where the government was providing relief, Jiang Wen had already finished classes and saw a hint of dependence in Jiang Qiuyi's light brown eyes. These days, he was still afraid that his sister would not like him, afraid that he would become a burden on the other party, and was then sent to the welfare home by Jiang Qiuyi. Fortunately, with these days of interaction, he found that his new sister was really gentle and powerful, able to make the seeds of dala flowers so delicious. Jiang Wen obediently looked at Jiang Qiuyi and spoke with concern, "Sister, you're back." Jiang Qiuyi was in a good mood and looked at Jiang Wen, who greeted her obediently. She reached out and hugged him, not sure if it was because the poor family's child had already taken over the family. She always felt that Jiang Wen was too well behaved. Being well behaved was really heartbreaking, and she couldn't resist taking a sip on Jiang Wen's tender little face. The white and tender little face instantly turned red, and Jiang Wen shyly covered his face, completely unable to see the little adult's appearance just now. Jiang Qiuyi looked at the shy appearance of the child and couldn't help but reach out to rub Jiang Wen's curly hair before saying, "Sister has brought you something good." Jiang Wen's eyes lit up when he heard these words. He was still a 7-year-old child. Although he was trying to restrain his expression, his face was filled with anticipation, and his eyes were shining brightly. Jiang Qiuyi took out a tube of the latest new nutritional liquid, which was a new product with pineapple flavor. This little product cost more than 1,000 star coins. It was really a pain in the flesh. Although she felt that the nutritional liquid was just like that, no matter what the flavor was, it was a crude essence flavor, like a bag of fruit juice at the grocery store for 50 cents when she was young. Living next to Jiang Qiuyi are two neighbors. One is an elderly grandmother who lives with her grandson. However, the neighbor's grandmother's life is better than that of the Jiang family. She accidentally plays with two children, and then Jiang Wen envies the neighbor's child who has the latest type of nutrition liquid. Jiang Qiuyi felt sour when she saw that scene. Although she was only in her 20s and had never raised any children, she usually met all the children in her clan who were child kings. She ran around the old house and met Jiang Wen's sensible and heartbreaking child for the first time. If she has a blood relationship with her, she is a descendant of the Jiang family. She can still be considered an ancestor. Although she and Jiang Wen have not been together for 2 months, seeing Jiang Wen looking enviously at other children with his soft curly hair in his eyes really touches the heart of her old ancestor. Jiang Wen widened his eyes and whispered, "Sister, this is too expensive. Let's refund it." Jiang Qiuyi looked at Jiang Wen, who was extremely sensible, and felt that his ancestors' hearts had been pricked by him. She squatted down and looked at Jiang Wen, then boldly said, "It's okay, it's not expensive at all. Today, my sister made a lot of money, and just a nutrient solution is nothing. In the future, my sister will work hard to buy you fun things every day and make delicious food for you." Jiang Wen smiled shyly upon hearing these words, and then whispered in a low voice, "Sister, I will work hard to go to school, and I will also buy you a lot of things for the future military academy entrance exam." Jiang Qiuyi felt that if her grandfather were around, seeing such a well-behaved child in her arms would definitely hurt. When she heard Jiang Wen with a childlike innocent voice, she leaned in and gave Jiang Wen a shy little expression. Jiang Wen began to do his homework. Jiang Qiuyi released the shield and then counted the profits earned from setting up the stall today. Looking at the numbers on his account, although it seems that the profit from selling roasted sweet potatoes is still good, it is not very reliable to rely on roasted sweet potatoes to get rich and buy a house in a safe place, and then find a good school for Jiang Wen. During the day, this slum was not as chaotic as before, but at night, there were still many stars, thieves, fish, and dragons mixed up in the black market. This was the border of the imperial government's rule, so there was no way to control the chaos, and violence filled the unknown alleys. Most honest people will never go out at night, especially natural women like her who are the easiest to be targeted. Therefore, Jiang Qiuyi will wear disguisers when going out. Although these chaotic people dare not openly deal with them who eat the imperial government's subsistence allowance, if they are targeted, it will be a big trouble. Anyway, she will find a way to move out of this small mining star, and even if it doesn't work, she will have to move into the inner city. We still need to find a way to change Jiang Wen's school, otherwise this place will be too chaotic. Jiang Qiuyi frowned as she thought about what to post in one of her videos. With the profits she earns from selling roasted sweet potatoes, she could save up a few days to barely buy the cheapest simulator that can synchronize the taste of food. Jiang Qiuyi flipped through the screen and suddenly saw a potted plant that looked very much like a tomato. The red fruit was as big as a fist and hung on the green and furry branches, looking pretty like a red lantern. Although it was different from the tomato varieties she had seen before, she still recognized it at a glance as a tomato. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Tomato Fried Eggs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Tomato Fried Eggs. Jiang Qiuyi looked at the price written on it and couldn't help but feel heartbroken as she asked the boss if it was edible and that she couldn't buy the tomatoes alone. She could only buy the entire potted plant, which made her feel a bit overwhelmed. As soon as she saw tomatoes, she remembered the classic home-cooked dish of scrambled eggs with tomatoes, which was convenient, simple, and served well, but now she could only think about it. It's not dark outside yet, and Jiang Qiuyi's mind is filled with tomatoes, scrambled eggs, and a large bowl of rice. The aroma is overflowing, and she can easily finish 2 bowls of rice. However, the reality is particularly cruel, and she can only pitifully drink this nutrient solution that is no different from plain water. Dude is a commoner on the outskirts of the planet Veda, and his workplace is in the wealthy district of the inner city. After working tirelessly for the wealthy and paying taxes on the star coins he earns every month, he can only barely cover the expenses of himself and his wife. After a busy day traveling from the bustling wealthy district to the somewhat desolate outer city, Dude originally only wanted to go home and rest, but suddenly smelled a tempting aroma. As soon as he looked up, he saw a petite young man wearing a disguise, as if selling some dishes. It was really strange. Even wealthy people in affluent areas need to make reservations a few weeks in advance to get food. How could anyone be selling food here, but the sweet smell in the air fills their noses? When they come to their senses, Dude stands in front of the young man, and the star coins have already been transferred to their account. In the palm of his hand was a steaming hot freshly baked dish. What was it called? The young man just said it was called roasted sweet potato. Dude carefully broke open the roasted sweet potato, and the orange-yellow flesh filled his face with hot air. He couldn't wait to take a bite, and the sweet and rustling taste filled his mouth. After a day of exhaustion, it disappeared instantly. The warmth flowed down his esophagus into the open stomach, and the satisfaction he had never felt was completely different from that of nutrient solution. He finally understood why those nobles said that nutrient solution was for the poor to drink. When he came to his senses and looked at the roasted sweet potato that had already been taken out by himself, Dude was filled with regret that he should have bought a few more just now. 200 stars was just too cost-effective. He saw the cheapest dish in his mind as costing several thousand stars. Fortunately, when he bought it, he still remembered that his wife had bought 2 copies, and he didn't know if he could still see this young man when he came over tomorrow. Jiang Qiuyi's roasted sweet potato stall has been selling out for the past few days. Although the profit is still good, she doesn't want to rely solely on roasted sweet potatoes. Roasted sweet potatoes actually have no technical content. As a state banquet chef, she not only wants to become rich, but also wants to bring the long-standing Chinese cuisine to this interstellar space. Jiang Qiuyi saved enough money and immediately placed an order for the simulator. She, along with the tomatoes she had seen on the StarNet before, bought some fat that looked like pork from animals. She chose the fatty parts and searched for a long time only to find some ingredients that looked like ginger and garlic. Although the price was not cheap, she couldn't help but feel heartbroken when she saw a large number missing from her account. In fact, some agricultural products are not expensive at all, even cheap to the price of cabbage. Of course, these are the raw materials for making nutritional liquids, which have long been controlled by the imperial government and manufacturers of nutritional liquids. However, if ordinary people buy them, the price is still a bit high. After all, their factories buy billions of tons, and they are even stingy about 150 grams. Jiang Qiuyi couldn't buy soy sauce, light soy sauce, dark soy sauce, vinegar, and other seasonings in the interstellar space. She only bought salt and sugar. She and Jiang Wen got something from Uncle Avada that looked like an iron pot and could heat up, but it wasn't like an iron pot that was removed from a machine. Fortunately, the material was very safe, so she didn't need to buy a pot to use it as an iron pot. The knife was bought by her on the Star Network. With just 1 serving of tomatoes, Jiang Qiuyi emptied the money she had spent selling roasted sweet potatoes for half a month. Jiang Qiuyi reached out to the bottom of the iron pot and felt the gradually rising temperature. Then she neatly divides the meat into equally sized chunks. As a chef, she has also honed her knife skills from childhood to adulthood. Her movements are not only neat but also very beautiful and completed in one go. State banquets emphasize not only rich cultural heritage, but also a perfect combination of color, aroma, and taste. The top chefs must be able to cut tofu into pieces that are pleasing to the eye, and extreme knife skills are also essential skills. Sometimes, the cooking process is also showcased to diners as a performance. Jiang Qiuyi squatted in front of his sister and nervously looked at her, not daring to disturb her. He was shocked by her beautiful knife skills. He really felt that his sister was a very skilled cook, different from his sister who usually likes to rub her hair and kiss him. Now she looks very impressive. Jiang Qiuyi noticed that the temperature was about the same and began preparing for refining. Refining also requires attention to technology. If the temperature is too high, the oil will be slightly bitter when it comes out, and if the temperature is too low, the lard will have a fishy smell. A sizzling sound sounded in the air, watching as the white and tender meat in the pot gradually precipitated oil. Jiang Qiuyi watched as it was almost time to control the temperature. At this moment, the oil was sizzling, and she decisively picked up the oil residue. She did not force out all the oil from the fat, but instead kept the oil residue in the best fragrant state. She casually sprinkled a handful of sugar on the crispy oil residue in her mouth, and in fact, she could also add pepper, salt, and chili peppers. However, with limited conditions now, eating it with sugar is irresistible. A small plate of oil residue was placed in front of Jiang Qiuyi, which was so fragrant that he couldn't help but swallow his saliva and put it in his mouth without considering the heat. Jiang Qiuyi couldn't resist the oil residue that had just come out, so she took a satisfied taste. The remaining oil pan was fried with fragrant ginger and garlic, and then the eggs were quickly mixed into the pot. The egg liquid quickly solidified into a golden and lustrous oil, making people salivate at a glance. She quickly poured out the eggs. Cut the tomatoes in advance and stir-fry until the juice is mixed with the golden egg. Mix and blend until the tomato soup spreads all over the surface of the egg and penetrates into the soft interior. When the flavor is fully integrated, just a little salt can stimulate the freshness and aroma. Add a little sugar to enhance the flavor, and the golden egg is wrapped in a bright red juice. The aroma can almost lift the ceiling. Jiang Qiuyi felt a bit regretful that she didn't have onions. Otherwise, adding a touch of emerald green onions to this color would achieve a state of complete color, aroma, and fragrance. She picked 2 tomatoes hanging in a potted plant, and the tip of the knife scratched the skin but didn't disturb the juice inside. Jiang Qiuyi held the handle of the knife in her hand, and in a few minutes, a bright red flower bloomed in her hand. She carved 2 flowers and sprinkled them with sugar powder, and this sugar-mixed tomato was completed. When Jiang Qiuyi came out of the pot with scrambled tomatoes and eggs, his soul drifted with the fragrance. When he saw the flowers blooming in Jiang Qiuyi's hand, he widened his eyes and looked at his sister with admiration, his mouth slightly open, and his heart full of wow. Wow! After showcasing her skills, Jiang Qiuyi rubbed her curly hair and looked at Jiang Qiuyi, who was full of admiration in her eyes. In fact, these were nothing. Carving and knife-making were all basic skills, and setting the plate also affected the final presentation of the dish. End of this chapter.